A massive explosion erupts with overwhelming force, powerful enough to drive Deas down to his knees as he collapses onto the ground, completely overtaken by its intensity. Even after combining the power of the Phoenix, he realizes that the force unleashed is far greater than he had imagined before. At the same time, the exhaustion hitting his body is also far more intense than he expected, weighing heavily on him. In that moment, Ernan rushes forward and holds Deas in her arms, supporting him as she checks on his condition, addressing him as the Demon King, and showing concern for his well-being. As Deas steadies himself, his attention shifts toward her, noticing that her knees are burning hot from the strain. Concerned, he points out her condition. Ernan responds with an awkward smile, explaining that water spirits specialize in recovery, implying that she can handle the damage. Despite her reassurance, there is a sense of restraint, as she emphasizes that it is enough and subtly reminds herself not to show weakness. She remains aware that Fulani orcs might be watching nearby, making it important to maintain composure. Understanding her reasoning, Deas accepts the situation. Ernan then decides to rest for a moment, allowing herself a brief pause to recover. Deas agrees calmly, reassuring her not to worry as the scene settles into a quieter moment after the chaos. In the next scene, Jason is seen reading a newspaper, where a bold headline reports that dozens of succubes have invaded. At the same time, a loud voice echoes with a declaration that demon kings must be hunted. Reading this, Jason becomes visibly angry. His hands begin to shake as he tears the newspaper apart. Despite his anger, a faint smile appears on his face as he turns toward Vivian and reminds her that he had clearly instructed her not to send her subordinates out of the tower and to maintain a low profile. Meanwhile, Vivian casually sips her wine. Showing no concern, she asserts her authority, making it clear that she does not need to obey him simply because he says so. She declares herself as Queen Luna, the one who gives orders, and questions whether he summoned her for something so trivial. Jason responds with frustration, explaining that because of her actions, human surveillance has increased, something he had specifically wanted to avoid. Vivian brushes off his concern, suggesting that he is worrying too much. She downplays the threat, stating that they are just heroes. Jason is left confused by her response. Vivian continues, explaining that heroes are nothing more than prey for demon kings. She treats the encounter between her subordinates and a hero in the palace as mere bad luck. Disappointed, Jason places his hand on his forehead and questions why the Archduke would send someone so reckless and driven by lust. This remark immediately enjars Vivian. She reacts sharply, unable to tolerate being described in such a way. In her rage, she climbs onto the table and demands that her title be corrected. She emphasizes her identity as the Succub Queen and insists that she is far more than just a simple lustful figure, declaring it a matter of pride. Jason finds amusement in her reaction and lets out a small chuckle. He then shifts the focus, pointing out that this dimension is already inhabited and asks her to consider how many heroes might actually exist. Vivian responds based on her past experience, recalling that in the dimension she conquered, there were around 10 heroes. She estimates that in Arin, a place known for having many heroes, there might be around 50, and questions why there is such panic over such a small number. Jason reacts again, slightly exasperated, noting that the Archduke clearly did not inform her of the actual situation. He implies that if she had known the truth, she would have never considered entering this dimension. Vivian is left confused by his statement. Finally, Jason reveals the truth, stating that the current number of heroes registered with the Hero Guild stands at 4,732. Vivian forces a nervous smile as she fidgets with her hair, trying to steady herself while questioning whether Luna is joking. She insists that there must be limits to everything, believing it is impossible for a single dimension to contain that many heroes. Jason responds with a knowing smirk, explaining that if the dimension truly had limits, the previous demon kings would have already conquered it long ago. He makes it clear that this situation is not a matter of bad luck, emphasizing that in this dimension, encountering a hero is an everyday occurrence. Hearing this, Vivian begins to sweat, her body trembling as she awkwardly tries to deny the possibility. She clings to the belief that the Archduke had clearly made a promise to her. As doubt creeps in, her mind drifts back to the moment when her superior had spoken to her, reminding her that as Vivian Blunt, a demon king who had conquered the Luna dimension and the queen of the Luna race, she should have no difficulty conquering Arin. She had been promised the position of the next Archduke upon completing the conquest, along with the responsibility of watching over Deas. The expectation for great results had been made clear, along with a warning not to disappoint. The memory fades as the scene returns to the present, where Jason, still wearing a smirk, reveals that he is aware she had also been promised the position of Archduke. He further exposes that she had received a secret Luna order to watch over Burj Deas. Vivian is left shocked, unable to comprehend how he knows such information. Jason calmly confirms that he knows it well, explaining that it is a method he himself uses from time to time when treating someone as a disposable informant. Without hesitation, he then uses his power to violently slam Vivian into the ground. Stunned and struggling to process his words, Vivian reacts in disbelief at being called disposable. Jason responds with a cold, piercing glare, making it clear that she has been abandoned. He ridicules her as a foolish succubus queen, and declares that from this point onward, with her limited intellect, she should not attempt to think about anything at all, not even anything resembling independent thought. He demands absolute, unconditional obedience to everything he says, pressing her to understand her place. Overwhelmed and trembling in fear, Vivian submits, confirming that she understands. Jason continued reading the newspaper, absorbing each alarming headline as the gravity of the situation unfolded before him. The paper reported that the legendary 10-star hero, Daphne Fillion, was dead. In the same breath, Itmngoshona Inus, that Wharton Kolo had been selected as the new 10-star hero. Another shocking revelation followed, stating that the location of Urgus Tower had finally been exposed. The report then shifted to darker news, announcing that the Demon King of Urgus had been granted a new and fearsome title, the Demon King of Flames. Alongside this, the Hero Guild officially declared that it would offer no support for any attempt to conquer the Demon King's tower. With the death of Daphne Fillion, anxiety began spreading rapidly across the continent, creating an atmosphere thick with fear and uncertainty. As Jason processed all of this, a heavy realization settled in his mind. The world itself seemed to be trembling with fear, and he silently acknowledged that this was not the scenario he had wanted. Despite the chaos, he dismissed Vivian Blunt as a minor concern, someone he believed he could easily control. However, his thoughts quickly turned serious as he identified the real problem, Burz Dayas, the arrogant black flame dragon. He reflected that he had originally intended to leave things as they were for a little longer, but circumstances had changed. Now, with no other viable option, he resolved that he would have to eliminate it. The scene then transitioned smoothly to Burge Tower, specifically the 4th floor, inside Ernan's house. The atmosphere here contrasted sharply with the chaos outside. Ernan was calmly cooking, her movement steady and composed, while nearby, Dayas lay on a bed. Visibly injured, he was in his red-haired appearance, his body still recovering. Slowly, Dayas opened his eyes, disoriented and weak, trying to make sense of his surroundings. While continuing to cook, Ernan noticed his movement and smiled warmly, acknowledging that the Demon King was finally awake. She mentioned that the soup was ready and indicated that he could eat it. Dayas, still gathering his thoughts, paused before responding, his attention shifting to his surroundings. Shock spread across his face as he realized something significant. He was inside his own tower. Meanwhile, Ernan continued smiling, casually remarking that the place was very well decorated. Struggling to sit up, Dayas questioned how much time had passed and tried to understand how he had ended up inside the tower in the first place. Ernan reassured him not to worry, explaining that no one had discovered them. She had taken advantage of Gordon not being at his station and had secretly entered through a 5th-floor window. She further clarified that it had not even been 10 minutes since they had entered the tower. Hearing this, Dayas acknowledged her effort and calmly remarked that she had done a good job. Ernan responded with a light chuckle, clearly pleased. However, Dayas soon noticed something unusual about his condition. He questioned whether Ernan had done something to him, as it was obvious that his body, which should have collapsed from exhaustion, was instead overflowing with energy. At that moment, the water spirit intervened, explaining that the reason was simple. It had shared its mana with him. Dayas was taken aback by this revelation, realizing that a spirit had restored the Demon King using its own mana. The water spirit continued, pointing out that Dayas had absorbed Lena, a spiritual beast, and because of that, his body could now absorb mana in ways that were previously impossible. It admitted that it had never seen anything like this before. As a result, Dayas had also gained the ability to use the spirit's method of communication. Privately, the water spirit smirked to itself, thinking that simply placing a hand on the chest was no longer enough, and now even a hug would be required. The thought overwhelmed it, and it internally panicked, feeling as though it might not survive at this rate. Dayas stood up and addressed Ernan, declaring that this was their secret and warning that it must not be told to anyone else. He believed that if a Demon King showed weakness, it would affect his authority. Ernan responded that he understood, but added that he had one condition. Dayas asked what it was, and Ernan let out a cute chuckle before saying that next time one of his wishes should be granted. Dayas questioned this wish, then agreed as long as it was nothing troublesome. Ernan chuckled again and agreed playfully. At that moment, a message arrived for Dayas from Gordon, addressing him as Demon King and stating that the situation was serious. Dayas immediately asked what was happening. Gordon informed him that the Kingdom of Hilderin had discovered the location of their tower and was planning to reactivate the hero expedition. The report was marked as an item submitted by Hill and Cargill, leaving everyone shocked. Ernan, now concerned, recalled that Daphne Fillion, on her last mission before dying, had revealed the location of the Urgus Tower. A drop of sweat rolled down Dayas' face as he thought about how, in this dimension, there was no communication magic like in the demon realm, and at most, they could only use messenger pigeons. He remembered attacking Pally in a way meant to eliminate even those pigeons. However, it seemed that Pally had already sent the information from another place before their encounter. This meant that he had failed to report that Deas was the master of the Phoenix. Fail, Deas considered it a small blessing within misfortune. Gordon continued, explaining that this time the hero expedition would gather all 10-star heroes and would be planned as the biggest expedition ever. It was estimated that the preparation would take at least 6 months. Deas fixated on those 6 months. The tower's location had already been discovered, and if multiple 10-star heroes were involved, cheap tricks would no longer work. Avalanches or attracting monsters would not harm them in the end, as hundreds of heroes would arrive at the tower in full preparation. The realization struck him hard that in just 6 months, he might die after being toyed with again. Frustration surged as he searched desperately for a way to counter it somehow. Overwhelmed by these thoughts, Deas became extremely anxious, sweat pouring from him. Ernan held his hand and reassured him that there was a method. He explained that only the Demon King's competent subordinate, the Dark Spiritist, could carry it out. Hearing this, Deas's hair turned black again, and he let out a chuckle. He thought about how absurd that ridiculous name sounded, and how it somehow calmed him every time he heard it, easing the tension. Regaining composure, Deas stated that he had caused unnecessary worry, and that they would immediately proceed to a countermeasures meeting. Internally, he resolved that he would not fall or be defeated by the heroes who had once manipulated and killed him. Before taking his revenge, he would not collapse. Ernan then revealed that the method to stop the Hilderan hero expedition involved kidnapping his younger sister, Alina. Deas was left confused by this unexpected statement. Ernan grabbed Deas's hand and insisted that they had to save Alina in order to stop the hero's journey. Deas immediately recognized Alina as the 13th princess of Hilderan, the same princess who had originally been meant for kidnapping. Ernan then revealed that Alina was actually her younger sister. Even though they had different mothers, the two of them shared a bond as close as real sisters. Earlier, Ernan had read in the newspaper that Alina had been kidnapped by the Demon King of Absolute Hardness, and ever since then, she had been deeply worried about her safety. Deas found it strange that Ernan was so concerned over her. He reminded her that other Demon Kings did not treat hostages the same way he did. Ernan then brought up the special magic connected to the World Tree's child, the same magic that forcibly increased mana sensitivity. Alina had also inherited that power. Unlike Ernan, however, Alina's mana sensitivity had exceeded her limit from birth, and the side effect left her with an extremely frail body. Because of her condition, even going outside had been restricted, and learning magic had become impossible for her. Still, Ernan believed there was hope. If Alina stayed inside Deas's tower, where mana was scarce, and if she learned how to control mana properly, she could eventually become someone truly powerful. Ernan guaranteed it without hesitation. Hearing that, Deas silently considered the possibility. Having another person with abilities similar to Ernan's would certainly be useful. Even so, Deas pointed out that rescuing a princess was the kind of task meant for heroes, not a demon king. Ernan casually replied that they could simply make the heroes do it instead. Deas realized how naturally Ernan ordered others around. Ernan only smiled proudly, reminding him that she was still a princess after all. At the same time, Deas understood that heroes were already gathering, and there was no time left to continue arguing. He immediately ordered Gordon to inform Hilan Karjal and organize a hero's journey to rescue the 13th princess. Gordon accepted the order at first, but the realization quickly hit him. Another princess rescue mission had somehow been added once again. As the discussion ended, the scene smoothly shifted toward the Tower of Absolute Hardness, specifically the room of the Demon King himself. Deas arrived there alongside Gordon, where the Demon King of Absolute Hardness, Yugur, was already waiting. Yugur had already heard the news that another hero's journey was preparing to invade Deas's tower. He wondered if Deas had come seeking assistance this time. At the same moment, Yugur questioned why he should help someone foolish enough to insult the standards. Deas slowly spread his wings and rose into the air. Looking down at Yugur without fear, he declared that he had not come there to ask for a favor. Instead, he had come to help him. Hearing those words, Yugur was left completely shocked. He could not understand what Deas meant. Deas calmly revealed that a hero's journey was targeting the tower. The statement immediately startled Yugur once again. Without hesitation, Deas instructed him to assign the 13th princess, the girl he had kidnapped, to the first floor of the tower. He explained that if this was done, the hero's journey would simply rescue the princess and return without causing further trouble. Yugur's anger instantly flared. Furious, he called the idea complete nonsense. He shouted that he had never heard any news about a new hero's journey. Deas coldly responded that this was simply the limit of a Titan's intelligence gathering abilities. Those words filled Yugur with rage. He glared at Deas with murderous eyes, and warned him not to push his luck any further just because he was listening quietly. In the next moment, Yugur launched himself forward in anger. While attacking, he screamed that Deas had become far too cocky, and called him a worthless piece of trash who had insulted the standards of Titans. The attack he unleashed was Titan Magic, Gigantification Level 3. However, before the attack could even land, Deas calmly began listing names. He mentioned the 3rd Prince of Gianna, the 7th Princess of the Velos Dukedom, the 4th Prince of Machiel, and the 6th Princess of Candaria. The moment Uger heard those names, his movement suddenly stopped. Deas continued by explaining that all of them had either been pushed out of the line of succession or lacked the resources needed to launch a hero's journey. Because of that, kidnapping them would never trigger a hero's journey at all. Uger was shaken internally, deep down. He realized those were also targets he had once considered kidnapping, but he had never been fully certain about them. Completely stunned, Uger questioned how Deas could possibly know such things. A smirk appeared on Deas's face as he replied that the method did not matter. Inside his mind, Deas silently recalled the truth. Those princes and princesses were the exact people Uger had kidnapped in his previous life. Deas then reminded him that the only thing truly important was the safety of the tower. Uger hesitated and warned that if the information about a hero's journey coming to rescue the 13th princess turned out to be false, then the consequences would be serious. Deas remained completely calm. He explained that it would not matter either way. Keeping a single hostage on the 1st floor would not cause any harm to the tower. After hearing that reasoning, Uger found himself unable to say anything back. Uger stared at Deas with suspicion and demanded to know why he was trying to help him. He wanted to know what Deas truly desired from all of this. At those words, Deas formed a slight smirk on his face. Inwardly, he mocked Uger as a fool, realizing that he had completely taken the bait. Deas let out a grin and repeated the question in a slow, deliberate manner, wondering what he truly wanted. Inside his thoughts, Deas reflected on the reality of this dimension. He knew that brute force alone was not enough to withstand the overwhelming number of heroes that existed there. Deep down, he understood that Uger felt the same fear as well. Deas realized that Uger knew he was not intelligent enough to completely stop the heroes of this world. Because of that fear, Uger constantly trembled inside, only kidnapping targets who would never trigger a hero's journey. To Deas, the situation was no different from before his regression. As he continued thinking, Deas understood what would soon happen. The large and foolish coward known as Uger would eventually try to cling to a certain man in order to survive in this dimension. That man would become a ray of light for Uger. His name was Jason Kochmund. After reaching that conclusion, Deas calmly stated that he did not want anything in return. He simply believed that a great demon king deserved to live longer. With those final words delivered, Deas began leaving the area. As he walked away, another thought crossed his mind. He decided that he himself would take on that role, bring Uger to his side, and neutralize one of Jason's pieces before it could become a threat. The scene then shifted to the Golden Moon Merchant Guild base, specifically the teleportation circle station. Deas arrived there while using his alternate identity. With Uger's side already settled, his attention now turned toward the next phase of the plan. Hillen confidently reported that everything had been prepared according to Deas's orders, and the group could depart at any moment. At the same time, Archmage Rosal revealed that she had taken responsibility for creating the tower raid map. She only accepted the role because Hillen and Kargi had personally requested it. Since she had climbed the Tower of Absolute Hardness several times before, she possessed enough experience to guide the operation properly. Nearby, Hawk, the leader of the Scarlet Hawk Mercenary Guild, proudly announced that his entire guild was present and ready. The mercenaries intended to demonstrate the true strength of their guild during the mission. Meanwhile, the other mercenary members whispered excitedly among themselves. They remembered how generous their benefactor had been before and hoped they would receive another large tip this time as well. Deas quietly thought that the mission only involved reaching the 1st floor anyway, so the current preparations would be more than enough. He then turned his attention toward Granada and Ammon Katrashu and asked about the elf slaves. Ammon reported that 33 elf slaves had been rescued from different regions across the continent. Granada added that every single one of them had willingly sworn loyalty to her. Jedasan proudly reminded everyone that none of those negotiations would have been possible without his help. At the same time, he secretly wondered whether there would be an additional bonus reward waiting for him. Deas handed over bags of gold coins and praised everyone for their work, telling them that he would meet them again shortly. Jedasan immediately thanked him. The moment the gold coins appeared, Hawk and the members of his mercenary guild stared at them with shining eyes full of excitement. After settling everything, Deas officially declared the departure of the hero's journey. Their mission was now to rescue the 13th princess of Hildurin. The entire group answered in unison and prepared to move immediately. As the preparations outside concluded, the scene smoothly shifted deeper, underground into the warehouse, beneath the Golden Moon Merchant Guild. There, Deas questioned Granada about the loyalty oath she had mentioned earlier. Granada confirmed that all of the elves had sworn loyalty upon the World Tree itself. The other elves explained that Deas and Granada had saved them from a lifetime filled with disgrace and suffering. Because of that, expressing their gratitude through loyalty was the only way they could truly feel at ease. To them, serving the great Granada was also considered an honor. Satisfied with their answer, Deas congratulated them on becoming vassals of the Demon King of Blazing Fire. At that moment, Dea spread his wings and revealed his true identity as a demon king. The entire group of elves froze in shock. Deas casually wondered why elves always reacted the same way whenever they learned he was a demon king. Granada explained that such a reaction was natural. After all, no ordinary demon king would wander around the world in disguise like this. The other elves immediately became furious and demanded an explanation from Granada. Granada then declared that she had already sworn loyalty. Because of that, every elf who followed her would also have to swear loyalty to the demon king as well. One elf shouted in disbelief, unable to accept that Granada had seemingly betrayed the world tree itself. Granada raised her voice in anger and revealed her true feelings. Everything she had done was for revenge against humanity. She could never forget the humiliation and suffering humans had forced upon her and the other elves. The memories were filled with cruelty. Humans had killed elves without reason, shown them no mercy, turned them into slaves, assaulted them and tortured them endlessly. Even when the elves begged for mercy, nobody listened. Hearing those painful memories awakened fury within the other elves as well. One after another, they clenched their fists and admitted that humans truly had done all those terrible things to them. Soon, they began openly supporting Granada's desire for revenge. They all agreed on one thing: humanity deserved revenge. Watching their hatred grow, Deas quietly realized that even pure elves could eventually fall this far once they experienced the ugliness of humanity firsthand. Without wasting time, Deas ordered Gordon to gather all information related to the elves and create a route that would allow the girls to secretly infiltrate human society. Gordon immediately accepted the order. Deep down, Deas continued calculating his next moves carefully. In 6 months, the 10 Stars heroes would gather together in order to kill him. Before that day arrived, he needed to recruit more talented individuals to strengthen the tower and expand his influence across society. Creating chaos throughout human society was also an important part of the plan. Delaying the hero's journey for as long as possible would buy him valuable time. Until the 10 Stars heroes finally gathered together, 6 months still remained. And no matter what happened